Hi, it's Mike with AskATractorMike.com. Well, a week ago today, I was at the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville, and I went around to all the manufacturers' booths that were there to see what's new, to report back to you in case you weren't able to go to this show. And I didn't expect there to be a lot new in the smaller tractors that most of us own because of COVID. You know, we've had record demand and light supplies, and the pipeline of tractors is about empty. And I figured the last couple of years, everybody's just struggling to get inventory out, and there wouldn't be very many new products. And that's really kind of what I saw. I didn't see any features or bells and whistles that'll change our lives on tractors in the future. But some of the manufacturers had a few new models and new things, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to start with the orange guys today because the two tractors that are orange probably had more new products there than anybody. And we'll start with Kubota. And in my opinion, Kubota's got plenty of models. They kind of need to pare down a little bit, but they've added at least two more models. They had an LX 3310 that's a deluxe 33 horsepower kind of small frame tractor, and they've replaced it with an LX 3520, and they went from 33 to 35 horsepower, and an LX 4020. So they've got a 40 horsepower tractor in a smaller frame. And both these new models, the LX 3520 and 4020, come cab and non-cab. Now, why would you want a bigger engine or a 40 horsepower engine in a smaller frame? Well, if you're a dealer and you're selling your big frame tractor with a 40 horse engine versus competitors' smaller frame tractor with a 40 horsepower engine, you're going to be way out of line in price. You've got a smaller frame and less metal in the tractor, and you've got smaller tires and things like that. And so you'll have a big price advantage if you're selling a smaller frame 40 horse tractor against a larger frame like what I've got, 40 horsepower tractor. What Kubota picked up in this is more horsepower. They didn't gain anything on the lift capacity of the front end loader, which would have been nice. They did pick up some 3-point lift capacity, which I don't know that any of us max out our 3-point lift capacity, but what they did on the LX 4020 is they picked up the ability to take a smaller frame tractor and safely pull a 6-foot brush hog. And they will have another model, an SU 3520, which will be the SU is a bargain brand or bargain inexpensive tractor, no bells and whistles, cab tractor. So they'll have an SU 3520, no frills, cab tractor that loses some of the features. So they have those models. Another thing that Kubota did was on their inexpensive tractors, their L series, they updated their L2501 to a 2502, and they upgraded their L4701 to a 4802, added a little bit of horsepower there, and basically they're trying to shine up a little bit their inexpensive line, their bargain line. They're adding LED lights, a little bit better seat, rubber floor mats, and electric PTO on hydro models. Now, one other thing Kubota did, they're in an agreement with Titan Tire to come up with new tires, and they had a new tire with a Kubota logo on the side of it. Basically what they've done is they partnered with Titan to come up with new tires, and they've got a 1-year exclusive on these new R4 tires. They've got a little different lug on them. They've kind of got a jog on the end of them, which might help us on side hills, but you'll only see those on Kubota for a year, and they'll have their logo on and their name on it. And after that, it'll probably roll out to the rest of the compact tractor world. Now, rolling on to some other new things with orange tractors, the Kioti guys had a couple of new models and a big surprise in the middle of their booth. Let's talk about their new models first. They've come out with an NS series, a utility tractor. They've got 3 models from 45 to 58 horsepower. And I say they've got 3 models, there's actually 5. The 45 and the 58 are available in gear drive or a hydro. So there's five total models there. The one that's in between those 2 models only comes in hydro, and they're available in cab and non-cab versions. They're smaller tractors. They've done a little bit to improve the styling on them, and then they've come out with bigger tractors. A lot of traditional small tractor companies are getting into big tractors. They've got an HX series, which are 90 and 115 engine horsepower. So they're getting into that bigger tractor market. But the big surprise at the Kioti booth was this. They've got a skid loader. And I heard people asking who makes it. Well, Kioti does. It's been out in South Korea for a while, but it's Kioti. It's got their engines in it, and it's built in their factory. And they're rolling that out to North America, and they've also got a compact track loader. So that was a pretty big deal to see that in the Kioti booth. Well, now let's roll on to the red tractors. Let's start with Mahindra. I think they've got some tractors coming possibly later on this year, but they had no new models in their booth. Now, the big surprise of Mahindra in their booth is I saw Tractor Mike up on the Jumbotron. Walked around the corner, and there I was on their big screen TV, and I've done some video work for Mahindra, and I love working with those guys to promote their tractors, but wasn't expecting to see my pretty face up on the big screen, but there it was. But they don't have any new tractors out. Agco, Massey Ferguson, didn't see anything new there. Their Fendt line, which is a German-built tractor, they're getting smaller. They had a lot of new stuff on the big end, the combines and big tractors, but nothing on the smaller tractor end. And Case IH is kind of the same way. You know, Case is generally thought of as a big tractor company, and they had new stuff going on in the bigger tractors, but really not too much in the smaller tractors. It is the 100th anniversary of Farmall. Their ad agency lady was trying to get me to promote that, and I'm not too excited about Farmall being 100, but because I'm not even sure that name has been around 100 years. I think they skipped a few years in between. Could be wrong. But anyway, happy birthday, Mr. Farmall. And finally, the TYM brand, they had nothing new on the small end, except what we'll talk about in my next video. But they did have a new larger tractor in their booth, a bigger tractor. And so they're also trying to get into that bigger tractor market. As far as the blue guys go, the LS tractor in New Holland, nothing new on either booth on the small tractors. I think maybe there could be some coming later on this year, first of next year, but nothing at the Farm Machinery Show. The big news to me at the Farm Machinery Show was John Deere, and it wasn't new tractors. They didn't have any new tractors out at all at their booth. But when I walked in the door, and where I walked in was right there by John Deere's booth, I look up and I see John Deere on one end of their big banner, and on the other end I see a dealer name, and I'm like, what? Well, this is kind of big. In my video last week where I promoted the National Farm Machinery Show, I said, and they made a liar out of me, if you go to a national show, you'll be talking to corporate reps. In other words, there won't be dealers working the booth unless they're just kind of hanging around. Well, Deere made a liar out of me. They've turned over the management of the National Farm Machinery Show to their local Louisville dealer. And there's pluses and minuses of that. The plus is, if you're working the booth and you're a dealer and one of your customers comes in, you can make a sale on the booth. And if it's all a corporate booth and somebody comes in and wants to buy something, they've got to quote list price, and it really kind of looks bad, like your stuff is way overpriced. And so you pick up that advantage. The disadvantage to Deere of getting rid of that show is they don't have control over it. I talked to their PR guy, and he acknowledged that, and he said, you know, we probably want a few more corporate people here overseeing the show, but we're letting our local dealer handle it. Of course, Deere's worked the last few years to make their dealers bigger, and they've had mergers and acquisitions where some of their dealers have taken over other ones, and their dealer network, you know, they're getting fewer people and bigger. They've got the wherewithal to run a show like this, but it was a big shock to see Deere have a non-corporate booth at the National Farm Machinery Show and a booth run by dealers. I guarantee you all the other players in the game, the Case, New Holland, Agco, Kubota, Mahindra, Kioti, all of those guys are watching to see what goes good and bad with Deere's booth. They'd love to get out of the expense of manning a corporate booth at a big farm show like that and having their sales force off the territory for a week getting ready for it and working it. So we'll see whether the rest of the industry follows with that or not. But that was a big thing I saw at the Farm Machinery Show, was the fact that Deere is no longer having, now they co-op the booth, they're paying for part of it, but it's run by their local dealer. Big change. Well, there was one other thing that was different at this show, and that is one of the major brands in small tractors is gone. And we'll talk about that in my next video. Thanks for watching.